Hello everybody, thank you all for watching the last video I put out where I talked about Yau versus Redux. This video is going to be about something slightly different, and today I'm just going to talk about Yau versus Yau5. It's a question that I get asked quite a lot, and I just thought I would address this because pretty much everybody asks me. There's going to be three things that I'll talk about in today's video. The first one will be the last cross edge, because I get asked this all the time. Do I do it before centers or after centers? So I'll talk about that. We'll talk about the F2L edges that in Yau5 that you do before you finish your last four edges, so the two F2L pairs. And then I'll also brush on another thing that I get asked quite a lot, which is Jay's technique of his 5-move trigger that kicks out two edges from the last four edges and basically lets you solve last four edges as you would on Yau5 without having to solve two F2L pairs. Just a fair warning, for those of you who don't know Yau, you're really not going to be able to follow along with today's video. You need to be able to know Yau. If you don't know Yau5, that's fine, it's pretty simple. In Yau5, you just do your last cross edge before you solve your centers, and you preserve it until after your centers, and then you just insert it. Also in Yau5, you do two F2L pairs right before you start doing your last four edges, so that it's only cycles and slice flip slice that you have to deal with. Those are really the only two differences between Yau and Yau5. Personally, I see them as the exact same method. Some people try and say that they're two separate methods. For me, they're not. You have Yau, you have Hoya, you have Redux, and then in Yau, you have Yau and Yau5. Alright, so there are two ways to do the last cross edge, before centers or after centers. Personally, for me, for the majority of the time, I do it after centers. But that's only the majority of the time. I still do it before centers quite often. If there's an easy case or anything, there's no reason why you shouldn't. You should be able to utilize both. The thing is that there are benefits to both ways of doing it. So if you do it before you solve your centers, once you've finished your centers, you can just insert it and go straight into edges. You don't need to worry about it. There's no pauses. Also, there's that added benefit of when you're doing your first three cross edges, you just keep going and do your fourth, and you don't, like, I suppose it's better for look ahead maybe in a way. But on the flip side, if you decide to do it after centers, I think that's also good. I prefer it this way because the two algorithms I use to insert the last cross edge, they don't impact the centers at all. So I can have my centers completely misaligned, and I can use those two insert algs without messing up the centers. I'll put those two algs down in the description below. But basically what I do is when I'm performing those two algorithms, whichever one I have to use, I can use that to influence the edges that I'm about to solve. So I can insert an edge into the middle layer and make it easier to pair up my first edge by sort of manipulating that one of those insert algs. And that helps me transition into edges a lot faster than I would do if I were to do the last cross edge before centers. So if I do it before centers, once you finish your centers and you just insert that last cross edge that was made before centers, you don't have a lot of time, or you might have a little bit of a pause, basically is what I'm trying to say, between inserting that last cross edge and starting your edges. But if you do it after your centers, you can just manipulate the insert alg and just flow straight into your edges. And I think that's the main reason why I prefer doing it after centers. But like I said, I use both ways. So if I finish my first three cross edges and there's a really easy way of pairing up that last fourth cross edge, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna preserve it, and I'm just gonna attach it to a bar, and I'm gonna preserve it till the end. And especially on 6x6 and 7x7 as well, doing that last cross edge before centers can really help you out, because even as much as I prefer doing the last cross edge after centers, especially on 7x7, it can be very tricky at times. So maybe all I would recommend would be that you try and experiment, because I experimented with everything. I experimented with, once I started switching over to Yau, I experimented with doing it before centers, I experimented with doing it after centers, and I also experimented with inserting one of the cross edges incorrectly as well. Like, I've done all of these, and my preferred way for me is doing it after centers, but that might be different for you. You just gotta do loads of solves, experiment with both, and find out what's best for you. Next, I'm going to talk about last 4 edges. Now, first, 2 F2L pairs. Is it worth it? In my opinion, no, it's not worth it. At least not most of the time anyway. Down in the description, I'm going to link Jay's video of him talking about this. He used the 2 F2L pair technique for years, and he switched from it because he realized why it wasn't efficient enough. He is able to elaborate on why it's not good enough probably better than I will, so if you want, go watch that video, and he'll help you understand why the 2 F2L pairs probably isn't the best technique to be using on 5x5 or 6x6 or 7x7. That being said, it's not always the worst technique. There are certain cases where you could use it, and like the last cross edge for me, I sometimes still use that technique of doing 2 F2L pairs. Sometimes I might even do just 1 F2L pair. If by chance I'm onto my last 4 edges and a handy 3 move insert case for an F2L pair comes up, I'm going to do it, and then I'll move on to my last couple edges. But for the vast majority of the time, I don't think personally it's going to be worth it. I think because you have to solve 2 F2L edges during your free slice, your middle 4 edges, I think it really hinders on maybe look ahead. So you're spending a lot more time looking for F2L edges instead of doing whatever's in front of you. So for example, if the 4 easiest edges during free slice are all say I do green for example, if all 4 edges during my free slice middle 4 is all blue, I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and that's going to be the fastest way to do those middle 4. But if I was looking for those 2 F2L pairs, then my look ahead would be a lot worse, my middle 4 edges would be a lot worse, and it just wouldn't be worth it. Don't do F2L edges in your middle 4 edges on purpose, but if by chance you do one and an easy 3 move insert comes up or a free move pair just appears, then insert it, and you can finish your crosses from there, or you can finish your edges from there. Now lastly, I'm going to talk about the technique that Jay, I think he may have come up with it, but basically if you don't know this, so you've finished your middle 4 edges, you have your cross and your centers done, and you're onto your last 4 edges now. Basically what this technique does, I'll put the algorithm also in the description, it kicks out 2 of your last 4 edges, and then what you can do is you can now rotate, so these 2 that are still in the E slice are in front of you, and you can just finish your last 4 from cycling or slice flip slice. Basically gives you the same benefit that Yau5 would with your 2 F2L pairs, except you don't have to worry about solving F2L pairs in your middle 4 edges. Personally, I tried this, I'm torn. I sort of like it. I can definitely see the benefits of it. I did try it and it wasn't horrible. There were a lot of cases where it did work out amazingly and it was very efficient, and it was probably quite a bit more efficient than what I would usually do. I would just keep all 4 of my last 4 edges in the E slice for the most part. But there were also certain cases where it didn't really work that well, and where I think just keeping all of your edges in the middle 4 was probably a better idea. Personally for me, if you watched the last video where I talk about Yau versus Redux, you'll remember I said there was 4 ways of doing the last 4 edges, and that's cycles, slice flip slice, M U2 M prime U2, and then your last 2 edge parity algs. when you do this technique of kicking out the two edges into the top layer, you limit yourself to slice, flip, slice, and cycles, and the last two edge parity. You're not allowing yourself to do M, U2, M prime, U2, which I do think can be very useful at times. Personally, I'm probably gonna stick with how I do it. Now, like I said, with most things, like, just experiment with both and see what works for you. Something else might work different for you. For me though, I am going to be sticking with how I do things, because for me, like, you can still do cycles. Like, you can kick an edge, say you have all 4 edges in the E slice. If you want to do a cycle, you can just kick one edge out into the top layer, and it pretty much gives you the exact same benefit as I think Jay's technique does. But I also really like doing MU2 and prime U2. I think it can be really helpful at times during the last 4 edges, and I don't think I will be switching from that for quite some time. So this video was just designed to be a video where I sort of explain my thoughts on the Yau versus Yau5 debate, because everyone asked me about the last cross edge and that technique that Jay came up with, and now you know. But if there are some things in this video that I explained that you didn't understand, like sort of manipulating the last insert of the cross edge or anything like that, I plan on making tutorials in the coming months. Hopefully I'm not too lazy about it and I actually do it. Like I said, I have a lot of free time now, so I have no excuses really. But if I said anything in this video that you didn't understand, don't worry, I will be making videos in the future where I go more in depth into each case, like the last 4 edges or the last cross edge, and I look at each one individually, and I'll plan on making tutorials that will maybe help you guys out on how to solve those. I will not be making example solves, not anymore anyway. I had a couple of requests to make those, but I already have example solves on my channel. Plus, I think tutorials will probably be more helpful in sort of teaching people new cases, and will probably just be more helpful overall. So stay tuned for those tutorials. I don't know how long it'll be until I make them, but if you want example solves, I'm afraid you're probably not going to get them. So just like the last video, leave your comments down in the comment section. Say what you thought of this video. If you prefer other techniques in Yau versus Yau5, just let me know. Like the last video, I will be looking at the comments. I'll try to respond to as many as I can, and if you want, you can just message me on Instagram or something and we can talk about it. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.